The night jungle was quiet, but Aiden felt something strange in the air. A soft wind moved through the glowing leaves, and the ground hummed like a living heartbeat. He had walked alien lands before, but this place was different. Every shadow felt alive, every sound felt like a hidden warning. It was the kind of silence that waits for a mistake. Aiden took one more step forward, and the silence broke. A sharp whistle cut through the dark. A small silver object shot toward his chest faster than his eyes could follow. It was a dart, long, thin, and coated in a dark green liquid. His body moved before his mind understood. His hand snapped up and closed around the dart. He felt the cold metal press into his palm. He looked down at it, confused by how easy it felt to catch something meant to kill. For a moment, the jungle froze. Then a figure stepped out from the thick leaves. A young alien woman stood there. Her tall frame moved with the balance of a trained warrior. Her skin carried a faint shimmer in the moonlight, and her eyes glowed like molten gold. She held a small blowgun in her hand, but her arms had gone still. Her breath caught in her throat when she saw the dart resting safely in Aiden's hand. He expected her to attack again. Instead, she dropped to one knee, her head lowered as if she had failed a sacred duty. Her voice trembled when she spoke. Her words were soft but carried the weight of an old rule. She said that the dart had been coated in the venom of a jungle serpent. A venom no human could survive. Aiden looked at the dart, then at her face. He felt no poison burning through his blood, no weakness, no pain, nothing. The woman looked shocked, more shocked than anyone trying to kill should ever be. More figures emerged. From the shadows, warriors of her tribe surrounded them. Their bodies were marked with glowing paint, and their movements were silent as mist. When they saw the dart in Aiden's hand, their eyes widened. They exchanged looks of disbelief, mixed with something like fear. Then the oldest warrior stepped forward. His voice was low and steady as he explained the meaning of what had happened. According to their ancient law, if a warrior throws a killing dart and the target catches it, the warrior becomes bound to that person, not as a slave but as a life companion, a protector, a follower. The law was older than any written record passed down through generations to prevent endless war. Caught poison meant unmatched skill and demanded respect. Lysera, that was the young woman's name, stared at Aiden with shock and anger fighting inside her. She had not planned for this. She only wanted to protect her tribe from a stranger, a human with unknown intentions. Now she was tied to him by a rule she had never questioned until this moment. Aiden raised both hands and tried to explain that he did not need anyone to belong to him. He had no desire to force a bond or break her traditions, but the elders shook their heads. The law was not a choice. It was a binding act once done. It could not be undone by words. It could not be refused. It must be honored, or the tribe would see it as an insult to their ancestors. Lysera, on trembling legs. Her jaw tightened, but her eyes showed fear, not anger. She stepped beside Aiden. Because the ritual demanded it, the tribe formed a circle around them. Their voices rose in a slow chant. The sound echoed through the jungle like a heartbeat, growing louder with each breath. Aiden felt the weight of the moment settle onto his shoulders. He had come to study alien plants, not bond himself to someone he had never met. Lysera kept her eyes down, refusing to look at him. He could feel how much she hated the situation. He understood that she was not dangerous by choice but by duty. He wished he could free her, but he knew the tribe would never allow it. When the chanting stopped, the oldest warrior placed his hand on Aiden's shoulder and said the bond was sealed. Lysera belonged to him by the unbroken law, and he was responsible for her life, her safety, and her future. From this moment on, their paths were one. Lysera finally lifted her head. Her golden eyes met his for the first time. The anger was still there, but behind it he saw something else. A quiet fear of what her life had now become. She took a slow breath and whispered that she would follow the bond, but not because she wanted to. She would follow it because she had no other choice. Aiden felt a sharp pull in his chest. He had never wanted to control anyone, yet this law had placed her beside him, whether either of them agreed or not. As they walked away from the circle of warriors, Lysera's steps stayed one pace behind him, just as the law demanded. The jungle around them seemed to hold its breath, watching the strange new bond that had just formed. Neither of them knew that this moment would change the future of both species. Neither of them knew that the dart caught in his hand was only the beginning of a much deeper connection. And neither of them understood yet why the poison meant to kill him had done nothing at all. It was a question that would lead them both into danger, truth, and a bond far stronger than any old law could ever force. Lysera walked one step behind Aiden, just as the law demanded, but every part of her body felt tight with frustration. She had trained her whole life to protect her tribe, not to walk beside a human she barely knew. Her pride felt wounded, and her future felt stolen. She kept her eyes low, but her mind raced with quiet storms. Aiden felt the weight of her silence. He knew she followed only because her people had forced it. He did not want to drag her into a life she never chose. He wanted to help her, but he understood that every word he said might sound like pity to her. A warrior did not accept pity. A warrior stood on her own feet. They moved deeper into the glowing forest. The ground shimmered under their steps, and strange plants released soft blue mist that drifted through the air. Aiden watched everything with curiosity while Lysera scanned the area like a trained protector, always alert, always ready. Her anger did not stop her instincts. One point, Aiden stepped near a dark puddle. Lysera grabbed his wrist and pulled him back with sharp force. He looked down. The puddle stirred and revealed a hidden creature covered in thin spikes. It waited quietly to strike. The creature sank back into the mud once Aiden moved away. Aiden looked at Lysera in surprise. She avoided his gaze and said she only acted out of duty, not choice. Her voice was cold, but her hand still trembled slightly from the sudden danger. They continued walking, and the forest grew darker as heavy clouds covered the moon. Strange noises echoed from every direction. Lysera kept her posture firm, but Aiden sensed her tension. These lands were familiar to her, yet even she seemed uneasy tonight. A sudden storm rolled and rain poured down through the tall glowing trees. The forest floor turned slippery and uneven. Aiden struggled to keep balance, but Lysera walked with steady steps. Born in this land, she knew every trick the ground could play. She finally spoke again, telling him to follow her footprints if he wished to stay dry and safe. It was the first helpful thing she had said without anger. Aiden nodded and followed her. She did not look back, but she slowed her pace, just enough that he never lost sight of her steps. It was a quiet act of care hidden beneath her pride. Hours later, they found a small cave surrounded by bright moss. The glow lit the inside like a gentle lantern. Lysera sat near the entrance with her back straight, still acting like a warrior on guard. Aiden sat deeper in the cave, trying to give her space. He watched the rain outside and thought about the bond he never wanted to force. After a long silence, Lysera finally spoke. Her voice was softer this time. She said she never wanted to bind anyone. She only wanted to protect her tribe from danger, not create a life contract with a stranger. She explained that the law was sacred and she had always respected it, but she never imagined it would trap her like this. Aiden listened without interrupting. He felt her pain in every word. When she finished, he said that he respected her strength, and he would never use the bond to control her. He said she was free to walk beside him, not behind him. That the law might force them together, but it could not control their choices or their respect for each other. Lysera glanced at him for the first time. Her golden eyes softened before she quickly looked away. She said respect was earned, not given. Aiden agreed and said he hoped to earn it someday. Her expression shifted slightly, almost like the beginning of trust later. That night the storm grew louder. A strange roar echoed from the forest. Aiden moved closer to the entrance to listen. Lysera raised her hand and signaled him to stay back. Another roar followed, louder and closer. This time she stepped in front of him without hesitation. Aiden realized something important. She was angry, yes. She was frustrated, yes. But she would not let anything harm him. The bond may have been forced, but her honor as a warrior was real. She would protect him, even if she disliked him. The creature never entered the cave, but the moment changed something inside both of them. Aiden saw her bravery not as a threat, but as a shield. Lysera saw that Aiden trusted her completely without demanding anything in return. When the storm finally ended, Lysera lowered her hand and stepped away from him. She did not speak, but her silence felt different. Now it carried less anger and a little understanding. As dawn arrived and light touched the forest Lysera and Aiden stepped out of the cave, their journey was still long. Their bond was still uncomfortable. But something had shifted between them. They were no longer only bound by law. They were bound by shared danger, by trust slowly forming, and by a future they could not yet see. The morning light fell gently through the glowing branches as Aiden and Lysera moved toward the human research outpost. The storm had washed the forest clean, and now every leaf shone with a calm blue glow. Aiden walked with steady steps, but his thoughts weighed heavy. Lysera followed beside him, this time not behind him. Her steps were still sharp and disciplined, yet the distance between them felt smaller now as they reached the outer border of the outpost. Human guards spotted them from the watchtower. Their eyes widened when they saw an alien warrior walking beside a human without chains or resistance. Guns lifted fast and soldiers rushed forward. The sight of Lysera made them tense, but the sight of the dart in Aiden's hand made them freeze. Aiden raised his voice and told them to stand down. He explained that Lysera was not a prisoner. She was bound to him by her tribe's ancient law. The guards exchanged confused looks. They had never heard of such a rule. They led Aiden and Lysera inside while keeping a careful distance. Research base was simple metal walls, blinking screens, and the smell of old machinery. Lysera's eyes moved slowly across everything. She had never stepped inside a human structure before. Her people avoided human settlements, believing them cold and unnatural. She kept her back straight, hiding her discomfort inside the main hall. The lead scientist, Vale, examined the dart in Aiden's hand. She was an older woman with a calm voice and sharp mind. She studied the poison coating the metal tip. Her face changed from curiosity to shock. She told Aiden that the venom was strong enough to paralyze a large animal in seconds. For a human, it should have been instant death. No heart should still be beating after even a small touch of this poison. Lysera turned to Aiden. She had feared this truth, but she had feared this truth since the attack. Aiden should not be alive. The law only binds when a warrior strikes a target who survives. The poison, her dart, was never meant for someone who could walk away without harm. Vale ran more tests. Aiden sat still while machines scanned his blood. The screens blinked and lines moved, but nothing made sense to the scientist. Aiden's body showed no sign of poison. There was no trace of the venom anywhere. Lysera watched him closely, as if trying to understand what kind of human could stand so calmly under the shadow of death. Wow. The machines worked. Dr. Vale asked Lysera about the ancient law. Lysera explained that it was older than her great elders, a rule born from a time when tribes fought endlessly. A warrior who caught a killing dart proved unmatched skill and earned the loyalty of the attacker. It stopped battles before they began. It was meant to end bloodshed, not create chains. Aiden listened with quiet respect. He understood the beauty in such a law, even though its weight now rested on his life. Lysera spoke without anger this time. Her voice held history, not frustration. She said that every warrior trained with pride, knowing that if their dart was caught, their fate would change forever. But no warrior actually believed it would happen. It was a law honored in stories, not in daily life. Vale studied Lysera with growing fascination. She asked if anyone had ever broken this bond. Lysera shook her head. Breaking it was forbidden. A violation of the ancestors. It brought shame on the tribe and danger to the one who refused the bond. Aiden leaned forward and asked if the law protected both sides. Lysera hesitated, then nodded. She said the bond did not only tie her to him, it tied him to her life too. If she suffered a wound, he was expected to help. If she faced danger, he was expected to stand with her. The bond was not ownership, it was unity through survival. Aiden felt a new understanding rise inside him. Lysera had not been forced into servitude. She had been placed into partnership, though neither of them wanted it at first. That small truth softened something. Inside him just then Dr. Vale returned with the test results. Her eyes were troubled. She said something was different about Aiden's blood, something old and unknown. Aiden asked if it meant he was sick. Dr. Vale shook her head and said she did not. No, it was not sickness. It was something else, something she could not yet explain. This mystery unsettled both Aiden and Lysera's voice broke the silence. She asked if his strange blood was the reason the poison failed. Dr. Vale said it was possible, but she needed more time. They all looked at Aiden, but he stayed calm. He had faced many strange things on alien worlds, but this mystery felt personal in a way he could not explain. As the day ended, Aiden and Lysera stepped outside the outpost. The sky glowed orange as dusk approached. Lysera walked slower than before, her mind filled with questions about Aiden's strange immunity and the meaning of the bond that connected them. Aiden looked at her and asked gently if she wished. She had never thrown the dart. Lysera did not answer right away. She looked at the sky, then at him, and said she did not know what she wished anymore. The old law felt heavy, but her steps beside him no longer felt like a prison. Something was changing. But she was not ready to name it. Aiden nodded. The bond between them was no longer only law. It was becoming something deeper, shaped by mystery, trust, and a path neither of them had expected. The evening sun cast long shadows across the outpost walls. When Dr. Vale called Aiden and Lysera back inside, she held a small glowing vial in her hand. The poison taken from Lysera's dart shimmered like liquid fire. She said that the only way to understand why the venom failed was to find its source in the wild. The creature that produced it lived deep in the jungle, far beyond map territory. Aiden agreed at once. Lysera hesitated. She knew the region well. It was dangerous even for trained warriors. Her tribe avoided it unless absolutely necessary. But the mystery behind Aiden's survival bothered her more than the danger. She finally nodded and said she would lead him. They left at sunrise. The forest air felt sharp and cool. Lysera walked ahead with silent confidence. Her senses were stronger than any human. She noticed each broken leaf, each fresh track, each shift in the wind. Aiden followed, but not blindly. He watched her movements and began to study the forest through her eyes. As they moved deeper, the land changed. The glowing trees became taller, and the light between them grew dim. Strange humming sounds came from the roots under their feet. Aiden felt the ground vibrating like a deep, slow drum. Lysera explained that the venom creature lived near these humming trees because they fed on the same energy lines that ran beneath the soil. They reached a narrow path where the plants leaned inward, blocking most of the sky. Aiden stepped on a patch of soft moss, and it suddenly tightened around his boot. Lysera spun around and cut the moss with her blade before it dragged him down. She told him not to step on anything that looked too soft or too bright. Aiden thanked her. She looked away, but faint warmth appeared in her eyes. It was the first time she had not replied with cold. Duty hours passed. The jungle became alive with sounds that echoed between the trees. Aiden felt the weight of watching eyes from creatures he could not see. Lysera moved quietly, her body balanced like a shadow. She raised her hand and signaled him to stop. Ahead was a clearing. The ground shimmered with small green sparks. Tiny insects floated above the soil, and a sweet metallic smell filled the air. Lysera whispered that the venom creature often rested here. They crouched behind a fallen trunk and waited. The silence stretched until Aiden wondered if the creature had moved elsewhere. Then a soft rustle came from the far side. A shape slid into the clearing. Its long body glowed faintly. Its skin looked smooth until it rose up, showing rows of hidden spines. Each spine dripped a dark green liquid. Lysera's breath tightened. She had faced many beasts, but this one carried a danger even her tribe respected. The creature moved with silent grace, sniffing the ground and tasting the air. Aiden whispered that they needed a sample of fresh venom. Lysera explained that the creature only released the strongest venom when threatened. She looked at Aiden and saw determination in his face. She did not want him to get near it, but she also knew he would not step back now. She stepped into the clearing first. The creature lifted its head, sensing a challenge. A soft hiss filled the air. Lysera moved slowly, hands open, showing she carried no weapon. The creature circled her, spines rising. Aiden stayed hidden but ready to help. The beast lunged. Lysera rolled aside, its spines slicing the air. She stood again, facing it without fear. Aiden saw an opening. He grabbed a metal container from his belt and struck a nearby rock. The sharp sound echoed through the clearing. The creature turned toward him, startled. For a brief second, its spines flexed, releasing drops of venom. Aiden rushed forward, collected the drops, and jumped back behind a tree. The creature screeched and charged at him. Lysera leapt between them, her blade cutting a line in the dirt. The creature hesitated. Then it spun and vanished back into the thick jungle. Aiden breathed hard but smiled. Lysera looked at him with a mixture of anger and reluctant admiration. She told him that only a fool or a warrior would take such a risk. He asked which one she thought he was. She did not answer, but her silence held a faint hint of respect. They returned to the outpost by nightfall. The sample Aiden collected glowed stronger than the venom on the dart. Dr. Vale said this version might finally reveal the truth. Lysera stood beside Aiden as the scientists prepared the tests. For the first time, Lysera felt the bond in a new way. It no longer felt like a chain around her life. It felt like a path. She was walking with someone who trusted her, someone who faced danger, not to command her but to stand with her. Aiden saw her watching him and gave a small, tired smile. She looked away quickly, but a quiet warmth settled inside her. She did not choose the bond, but perhaps the bond was choosing who they were becoming. Night settled over the outpost like a heavy blanket. The glowing lamps lit the metal halls and cast long shadows across the walls. Aiden sat near the research table while Dr. Vale studied the new venom sample. Lysera stood quietly beside him, her posture straight, but her mind uneasy. She sensed something wrong in the air, a cold silence, a strange movement behind doors, a tension she had learned to recognize during battle seasons in her tribe. Dr. Vale finally looked up. The venom on the sample was far stronger than anything she had ever tested. She said that Aiden's blood reacted to it in a strange way. It resisted not by neutralizing the venom, but by transforming it. She could not explain how or why. His immunity was unnatural, something rare or hidden inside him since birth. Aiden listened calmly, even as the truth twisted inside him. Lysera watched him with careful eyes, seeing that this mystery affected him more deeply than he admitted before. Dr. Vale could continue. The metal door opened. The outpost commander stepped inside. His uniform was sharp and his expression colder than the night. He inspected Lysera with a stare that carried no respect, only calculation. Aiden stood at once, feeling danger in the commander's eyes. Commander said the outpost had lost many soldiers during conflicts with alien tribes, he claimed. The venom creature had potential for new weapons. He said Lysera, her biology and her bond to Aiden were assets, not guests. He ordered Aiden to hand her over for examination. He wanted her placed in containment for study. Lysera's eyes narrowed. She understood the meaning behind his words. She would become a tool, not a person. Aiden felt anger rise inside him. He told the commander that Lysera was under his protection and that the bond of her tribe held the same weight as human law. The commander ignored his words. He said human law came first, and the alien bond meant nothing here. Dr. Vale stepped forward, trying to reason with him. She said Lysera was not dangerous, and the bond kept her peaceful. The commander silenced her with one sharp gesture. He said the council approved the science order, and he would not debate it. Two guards moved toward Lysera. She stepped back, her hand moving to her blade. Aiden blocked their path. He said that no one would take her by force. The guards hesitated, but the commander repeated his order. Aiden felt the pressure building. He was alone against armed soldiers, but he could not let them take. Lysera Vale whispered urgently that she could delay the commander for only a few minutes. She told Aiden to leave now if he wanted to protect Lysera. Aiden did not waste time. He grabbed Lysera's wrist and pulled her toward the side corridor. She followed with quick steps. She did not question him. She knew escape was their only choice. The hallway echoed with alarms as the commander saw their movement. Guards chased them, but Aiden and Lysera moved fast. Lysera led him through a storage area, then through a narrow exit, used only for maintenance. The night air hit them with the smell of wet soil and cold wind. They ran into the forest following the dim moonlight. Aiden breathed hard but kept pace. Lysera stayed close, guiding him through hidden paths. She knew the forest better than any map. The sounds of guards faded behind them. The forest swallowed them in silence. When they finally stopped, Aiden leaned against a tree, catching his breath. Lysera stood before him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She asked why he risked turning against his own people for her. He answered without hesitation. He said he saw her as a person, not a subject. He said the bond was not force anymore. It was trust, and he would not let anyone treat her like an object. Lysera looked at him, and the forest around them felt still. Her anger toward the bond softened. In that moment, she whispered that no one in her tribe had ever defended her like that. Not even her own elders. Aiden told her she deserved respect, not because of the law, but because of who she was. They found shelter in old ruins, hidden deep inside the jungle. The stones were covered in vines and carvings, faded with time. Lysera touched one of the symbols and explained it told a forgotten story of humans and her people fighting side by side long before war divided them. She wondered if this ancient unity was why the bond felt less like a chain now, and more like a path leading toward something new. As they rested inside the ruins, Aiden watched the moonlight fall across Lysera's face. He saw not a warrior forced into bond, but someone learning to choose her own path. She sat beside him quietly, her walls lowered for the first time. The danger from the outpost was still real, but so was the trust forming between them. Night ended with neither of them feeling alone. The betrayal had pushed them away from safety but closer to each other. Their bond, born from an ancient law, was now shaped by loyalty and a growing connection. They could no longer ignore. Dawn arrived with a pale, quiet light that filtered through the ruins. Aiden woke to the soft sound of Lysera sharpening her blade. Her movements were slow and thoughtful, not filled with the anger she once carried. She looked at him briefly, then looked away, but the coldness in her eyes had faded. Aiden felt something shifting between them, but he did not try to name it. They needed a plan. The outpost had declared Aiden a deserter and Lysera a captured asset. If they stayed in the open, they would be hunted by both humans and the more aggressive tribes, Lysera said. The only place that could offer protection was her homeland, but entering it after forming a bond with an outsider would not be simple. Her tribe held strict rules and did not forgive broken paths. Still, they had no choice to wander without allies. Aiden agreed, and they began their journey back toward her homeland. The path grew harder with each step. The forest grew thicker, and the ground rose into steep slopes. The air turned cooler and carried the scent of mountain. Lysera walked ahead but stayed close enough to guide him. Aiden noticed she checked on him often, without seeming to do so. She slowed her pace on difficult terrain. She cleared branches that blocked the way. It was not duty now, it was care hidden beneath her warrior discipline. When they reached the border of her homeland, Lysera stopped. Her face grew tense. The ground before them was marked with tall stone pillars carved with ancient symbols. Aiden studied them quietly. Lysera said they were the markers of judgment. Anyone who crossed them without approval faced the trial of the bond, a ritual to test the truth between two connected lives. Before Aiden could ask, more warriors stepped out from the shadows. They surrounded them with raised spears and glowing face paint. Lysera did not move. She knew these warriors. She had trained with some of them. She warned Aiden to stay calm and not reach for his knife. The warriors escorted them into the tribal hall, a wide space made of woven branches and stone lit by green fire. At the center sat the council, the elders who guarded the tribe's laws. Their eyes moved from Lysera to Aiden with heavy judgment. The eldest elder spoke. His voice was deep and steady. He said Lysera had formed a bond with a human, and the tribe demanded proof that the bond was true, not forced by fear or manipulated by strategy. The trial of the bond would reveal their intent. It would test Aiden's loyalty, courage, and respect for their traditions. Lysair stood straight, but her hands tightened around her blade. She knew how dangerous the trials could be. Aiden listened carefully. He understood that passing the trial was the only way to protect Lysair from punishment and gain the tribe's trust. He agreed. Without hesitation, the first test began at sunset. The warriors formed a circle around Aiden and Lysair. A fire burned in the center. The elder explained the first trial was the trial of truth. Aiden must speak why he accepted the bond and why he defended Lysair from his own people. Aiden stepped forward. His voice was steady. He said he did not see Lysair as property, but as a person. He said the bond began as law but became trust. He said he would not let anyone take her because she deserved respect and freedom. The council listened in silence. Lysair's eyes remained on him. She felt something shift inside her as he spoke. His words were simple but carried honesty, not performance. The second trial was the trial of pain. A warrior cut Aiden's arm with a ritual blade. The wound was shallow but painful. Lysair was ordered not to help him. She was forced to watch Aiden endure it alone. If she tried to comfort him, the trial would end in failure. Aiden stayed silent. His jaw tightened, but he did not fall. The elder nodded and said his strength came from loyalty, not pride. The final trial was the trial of sacrifice. A large stone gate opened, revealing a creature similar to the venom beast, but larger and more aggressive. The elder said, Aiden must stand between the creature and Lysair, not as a command, but as a choice. If his steps moved forward, the tribe would accept the bond as true. The creature roared and surged forward. Aiden stepped in front of Lysair without thinking. He raised his blade, though he knew it might not be enough. Lysair's breath caught. She saw the fear in his eyes, but also determination. He was ready to risk his life for her without hesitation. Before the creature could strike, Lysair stepped forward too. She placed her hand on Aiden's shoulder and spoke to the elders. Her voice was strong. She said she no longer stood beside him because of the law. She stood beside him because she chose to. She said the bond was real, not forced, and that she would protect him as he protected her. The elders raised their hands. The creature stopped. The trial ended. The bond was accepted by the tribe. Aiden lowered his blade. Lysair looked at him with a softness she had never shown before. That night the tribe lit fires in recognition of the completed trial. Aiden and Lysair sat together in the circle of light. Their bond had changed. It was no longer built on law or accident. It was built on choice, courage, and a trust deeper than either had expected. The night fires of the tribe burned gently across the valley, casting soft waves of light on the mountains and the tall trees surrounding the homeland. Aiden and Lysair stood near the edge of the gathering, away from the loud voices and dancing feet. The air was cool and carried the scent of old herbs used in the rituals. The tribe celebrated their victory in the trial of the bond. But for Aiden and Lysair, the night felt quieter, almost fragile. Lysair watched the fire with a calm she had not felt in many moons. The elders had accepted the bond not as a rule forced by ancient law, but as a choice. They both chose to speak out loud. Before the trial, she believed the bond was a chain wrapped around her life. Now it felt like a path. She walked beside someone who saw her as an equal. Aiden stood next to her, silent but steady. His presence felt safe, not commanding. She sensed that his loyalty was not shaped by duty, but by something deeper. Aiden looked at her with quiet respect. He understood the pressure she must have faced during the trial. The tribe could have punished her for accepting a human. The trial could have failed. One mistake could have broken everything. Yet she had stepped forward and defended the bond with her own voice, not because she was forced, but because her heart chose to speak. He held that memory close as the flames crackled. Lysair turned to him and asked what he would do now. His outpost had labeled him a deserter, and the commander would surely return with soldiers. Humans rarely let subjects escape without consequence. Aiden said he could not return to the outpost. He had broken their orders. He had protected Lysair instead of following commands. But he added that he did not regret it. The choice had been clear, and his path now belonged to the bond he shared with Lysera listened with a soft expression. She told him that her tribe would protect him, but staying with them meant becoming part of their world. He would need to learn their language, their customs, their ways of survival. Aiden did not hesitate. He said he would learn whatever he needed as long as the path allowed them to walk side by side. Lysera felt a warmth grow inside her chest. She had never imagined she would hear such words from a human. Later, an elder approached them. He carried a small wooden box carved with ancient symbols. He opened it gently. Inside lay the dart that had begun everything. The elder said this was the final step in sealing their new path. The bond born from law was now guided by choice. The dart now belonged to both of them as a symbol of the old world giving rise to something new. Lysera looked at the dart. It once represented fear, frustration, and duty. Now it felt different. It was no longer a weapon. It was a reminder of how far they had come. She nodded. And the elder placed the dart into Aiden's hand. Aiden felt the cool metal and understood the meaning behind it. He turned to Lysera and held it toward her. She rested her hand over his. The symbol was now held between them, not by one hand but two. The elder stepped back satisfied. The tribe watched in silence as the bond was sealed with intention, not accident. After the ceremony, they walked away from the firelight toward the quiet forest. The moon shone silver above them, casting long shadows that seemed to walk beside them. Lysera stopped near a tree and looked at him. Her voice was soft when she said that the bond no longer frightened her. She no longer felt trapped. Instead, she felt seen and understood. Aiden said he felt the same. He had found more than a partner. He had found someone who trusted him when even his own people turned against him. They stood in silence for a moment, listening to the wind move through the leaves. The forest no longer felt dangerous. It felt like a new beginning, a place where two lives could grow without fear. Lysera then asked the question that lingered in both their hearts. What happens now? The world outside still held danger. The outpost commander would not forget Aiden's escape. Other tribes might not accept the bond. Some humans would see it as a threat. Some aliens would see it as betrayal. The path ahead was uncertain. Aiden looked toward the distant horizon lit faintly by the stars. He said they would face whatever came together. Not because the law said so, but because they chose to walk forward side by side. Lysera felt her heart settle with a quiet strength. She stepped closer and rested her hand on the dart he carried. It was no longer a symbol of force. It was a promise of unity. As the first light of dawn touched the sky, Aiden and Lysera walked into the forest toward a future shaped not by ancient rules but by their own decisions. Their path was uncertain, but it belonged to them, completely and without doubt.